Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. So far today, we have a lot of stocks moving up in pre-market. We're seeing a lot of bullish activity to start the day, despite some inflation data that was actually in line with some expectations. So right now, we do have the market popping up, but one of the main headlines across the market right now is that inflation rises 7% over the past year, highest since 1982. With that being said, this was expected. So this was the expected number, so it's not horrible. The market's up, the market's liking it. So far, we're seeing a lot of great movement. Tom, what are you seeing for the market today?
Yeah, like you said, really good movement today. The SPY popped up above 470, which I had as a pretty good resistance on the chart. So hopefully the SPY can keep up today and start to move up, once the market opens. Sometimes whenever the market opens, it can kind of reverse back down. So I really hope that the momentum keeps up. And honestly, I know that we saw some good stocks like Apple and stuff rising in pre-market. Looks like they're taking a little bit of a dip back down now. And I wonder if this might bring the market down with it. But I'm hoping that Apple starts to bounce maybe at the 175 support and starts to go back.
Tom, check out Palantir. It's actually running up in a pretty big way. I know you mentioned like Apple and a couple other stocks, but it's like I think this rotation is like more obvious right now than ever. Like we're seeing these stocks that have been struggling for months finally start to pop up. Like we have Palantir, Baba, Redfin, AI, DraftKings, like a lot of the stocks that have just been getting destroyed lately are finally seeing like money flow into them. Like even look at Unity.
Yeah, Unity's on fire. They're a huge metaverse stock. Same thing with Matterport. MTTR looks like they're up another 2.7%. Mike, we even have the marijuana stocks up again. Look at Tilray today, breaking above the high of yesterday. I know we talked about this one in last night's YouTube video a little bit, and I'm glad to see them starting to break back out. I think it looks pretty good. And yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, one of my favorites today, Mike, is Baba. I think Baba is looking really explosive. They're actually breaking above that pre-market high right now. And man, the China stocks gapped up again. Like sometimes when these stocks gap up, they go on some crazy runs.
You know it. I mean, they are going crazy, Tom. And I actually made a video this Saturday talking a lot about Baba and a couple other just like Chinese stocks. But overall, like they're definitely seeing money flow back into them. And I think they're at a good level. Of course, they're definitely risky in their own ways, but they're definitely running up. And they do look pretty good right now, so definitely keep those ones on your watch list. But just looking at other stocks too, like there's a lot of great movement heading into today. How about this DraftKings action?
Is DraftKings in the green? Let's
You
see.
know it.
DraftKings.
You know it.
Yeah, 2.7 broke that high of yesterday. Gotta love it, man. Oh my gosh, Mike, we might break $28 today.
Please, please. It's all. It's all I can ask for the past 6 months worth of destruction. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's finally getting close to like these averages again. And man, I know I think Hunter's somewhere around $30, which is awesome. And man, guys, if you guys are in DraftKings, let us know where you're at, because man, DraftKings is coming back strong, and hopefully it starts to come back and break up above 30 again.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of time, and we do have earnings creeping up on us in like a couple weeks. So, as long as the market just holds itself together, and as long as some of these growth companies report some decent earnings, I feel like that could be a huge catalyst to hopefully propel these growth stocks even higher. But then again, we have to make sure that, nothing crazy happens with the Fed or nothing crazy happens with the world. So with everything being said, I'm definitely not going to complain about this movement. But what are some of your favorite setups so far today?
Yeah, like you said, the growth stocks are the main sector moving. Like I'm loving a lot of them. Fastly starting to really break out above that high of yesterday. I think that one's looking like a pretty good play. Even Enphase, for example. Enphase has been a stock that's been moving down over the past couple of months, to say the least. Like, man, they've been kind of exploding down. They're getting really close to some of these major supports, and they're coming back pretty strong today. I actually like this one for maybe a good swing trade maybe for the next couple of weeks. I really like the setup here on Enphase, and also just a lot of these other stocks that were beaten down. I know PayPal's in the red today, but it looks like they're getting some good momentum back to the upside right now, and hopefully they can go up and start to break above those highs of yesterday. It looks like they're pretty explosive, and I'm really waiting for a lot of these beaten down stocks like Enphase, PayPal, even like a Firm and Upstart to start to really bounce here. And actually, a Firm is bouncing right on this like 75 support, and it just filled that gap.
Very interesting. I like your thoughts on Enphase. I feel like a lot of people are kind of sleeping on that one. Just a couple months ago, or actually just a couple weeks ago, this stock was trading at $283, and right now it's at 152. Like, it's at a pretty good level. Solid company, solar company, should be good for the long term, and I actually might like sell some puts on it, or actually buy the dip.
Yeah, and it might go down a little bit more, but I think it's still solid, and it's an awesome like company for the future. You know, it's one of those type of futuristic innovators. They're like a solar company, and you know they should be pretty innovative. You know, like we're seeing Enphase start to explode the past couple of years. We saw FSLR, First Solar, do pretty well. They're also pulling back. I think this one's another great candidate for shares. I really like the whole solar sector just in general.
Sounds great. So, looking back at a couple other stocks, Tom, I have to say it. Like, Baba's really powering up there. It's up like 4.5% right now, and it's just like creeping higher like every minute for the most part. So, there's definitely a lot of money flowing into these China stocks. Of course, the main ones are like Baba. You could say like PDD, but like honestly, I feel like the way to go is just like get one of the ETFs like Queb or even FXI. Are you there, Tom? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think those will probably be the better way to go, especially.
Okay, you're good, Tom. You're good. You're good.
Hello, hello.
Yep. I think there's just a lag.
Yeah, FXI I think looks. Yeah, I think it must be lagging actually, but FXI I think will be pretty good here for the longer term too. Like I think the ETFs are a lot better to go than individual companies, and you know, it just obviously it's going to be more diverse, and I just feel like it's a better way to go. But I will say I really like the setup on Baidu over the other ones. I know that Baba is still solid, but man, Baidu had like a triple bottom down here. I like this one a little bit better, especially if you caught it low.
Yeah, Baidu's pretty solid, and it also has some really good movement too. So let me check something really quickly with Baba and Baidu. So the implied volatilities are basically the same. Baidu's is a little bit lower, but it's essentially the same thing. So options are basically priced in the same way, but they generally move together. But I know what you mean. It's definitely a solid play either way. And like I'm checking like some of my momentum scanners, and like I'm seeing Baba, Baidu, and PDD all like leading the way. So there's definitely that's exactly where the money's flowing right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And look at Baba just broke above that high here on the 1 minute chart. Great to see. I wonder if we'll get up towards 140 today or not. I'm going to kind of look on the daily chart and see if we're like getting close to any big resistances. And oh yeah, it looks like 140 is definitely going to be one of those levels. I'm definitely going to plot that on the chart here. We had a pretty big bounce. Whenever we touched 140 the last time, we ran all the way up to 180. So yeah, we might see it get to 140 and then maybe start to slow down today around there.
We shall see. Another stock that's like slowly breaking out is actually Lucid, and Lucid has been having a pretty good week. Like almost every day for like the past 5 trading days, this thing has just been blasting up.
Yeah, it really has. I can't even explain it with Lucid, but I guess the hype is really coming back into some of these EVs, which is awesome to see. I know that Lucid had some awesome news to end the year, winning that Motor Trend Car of the Year for their Lucid Air. Like, I don't think anybody expected an electric car to win that. Nonetheless, a Lucid. Like, maybe I was expecting a Tesla or something to come in, but man, I was not expecting a Lucid to win that. But it's cool to see, and I'm glad that investors are getting in. I think Lucid's a decent company, and while I do think they might be overvalued, I think I said this yesterday. They might be overvalued a little bit, but at the same time, I think that they're one of the more established EV companies that aren't going to go anywhere.
Gotcha. All right. So we have some of these comments, and with the first comment, we have W saying, DraftKings, I can't believe Disney is buying out DraftKings with the question mark. I am not sure. Please confirm. So no, Disney is not buying out DraftKings. However, Disney owns ESPN, and Disney is looking to get some sort of sports betting, something with sports betting onto their ESPN platform. With that being said, they are looking at DraftKings for a potential partner, and they are also looking at Caesars. So they're not quite buying out DraftKings, they're just looking for a potential partnership, and it's not going to definitely be with DraftKings just yet. We are waiting on more information related to that deal, and when that comes out, if the deal does go with DraftKings instead of Caesars, it can definitely help boost the price up for DraftKings and Disney.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people are thinking that DraftKings will get the deal because they are a little bit better and more established as far as their applications and stuff go. So that's like where the main thought process is and why you might have heard that. But yeah, definitely, it's not a for sure deal yet.
Alrighty. So getting into some of these other comments, we have Keisha saying JD printed money. Yes, it did, and it's running up with a lot of the other China stocks. But I will say, Tom, it looks like most of JD's movement happened yesterday. Like, we can see, like, it just straight up exploded yesterday. And, like, even though it's up today, it's not moving near as well as, like, Baba or Baidu.
Yeah, you're right. It's not doing quite as well today, but yeah, yesterday, I mean, man, let's see how from open to close, like how much this went up. Somewhere close to like 8.4%. That's huge for these China stocks. And yeah, Baba's definitely doing better today. But I mean, I like all of them, to be honest. And who knows, maybe JD will turn around and do a little bit better here over the next like couple of hours.
Sounds good. Alrighty. Then we have Mike saying, I want to start a new position in Matterport and Baba, but scared that this is a bull trap. So I understand your concern. One way to combat that is to average in like over the course of like a couple weeks or a couple months if you want to. Another thing is you can short puts and just roll if you get assigned, and you can like short puts that are like out of the money. So that's one thing. But honestly, it's just like there's like a lot of times like whenever there's a dip, like there's always going to be that fear of like a potential bull trap, and you know you're definitely not going to be able to catch the bottom or even get close to it every time. But I think just by averaging in, that'll kind of solve the problem, because you know you might just get like a nice average over the course of like a couple weeks or maybe even a couple months. But if you see a deal out there that you like, you know, usually it's just best to jump on it, especially if it's at a good price.
Yeah, definitely. And those companies should do pretty good. Like I would think that Matterport does pretty good for the longer term, and Baba, and you know they're both at decent levels. So I mean, personally, I like them down here. You know, I'm in other stocks like DraftKings, Corsair, and stuff like that. So I haven't picked up any Baba or Matterport, but I'm definitely eyeing them up. And I really like Matterport, Mike. I know that we've been talking about this one a lot with the metaverse and everything, and they're even pretty big with just like the realty sector right now. So I really like them.
For sure. And they're at a good level too. You know, it would be different if Matterport was at $37 right now, but it's at like $16.70. So it's like you're getting it for a decent price. Of course, is it the low? No, but still, like it's at a pretty good price. And you know, even if you don't catch the bottom, you can just average in, and that should solve the problem. But with that being said, we have Shelly saying, good morning. May I please have important SPY levels to watch? Absolutely. So looking at the SPY, Tom, like what are the most important levels you have for today?
Yeah, I went ahead and threw the 90-day 5-minute chart up there so we can see all this great movement of the past couple of weeks. And I would say as far as today, there's a pretty big resistance that we're seeing here right around 472.50. It looks like on the 1-minute chart, we pretty much, or I should say on the 5-minute chart, we touched right around there and took a pretty big drop back down today. So I'm going to watch for that. And then as we drop down, I'm seeing a huge support right at $470 even. 470 seems like a pretty big level. And then right below that, I'm seeing 469. So I would say 470 is going to be the major support to look at. And then 472.50 as the major resistance, at least for intraday movement today. I don't know if you're seeing anything different, Mike.
No, I agree with you. Definitely important levels. And then let's see. We have Matt saying thoughts on AMBA. AMBA. It's up 6% today. Honestly, I don't really follow this company too much. It looks like they recently got a price target of $205, and then they were upgraded to overweight by Wells Fargo. So yeah, I mean, it looks like they have decent news out there right now. But like I said, I don't really follow this company too much, so I don't know a ton.
Yeah, same for me. I just don't know too much about him, but I will say the movement the past couple of years looks pretty good, Mike. It's just I don't know what happened with this big dip right here. We'll have to look into that. That's for sure.
Yep. Alrighty, Manny's mentioning MS. So it's been a while since we looked at MS, but I do know a lot of the major banks report pretty soon. I know a lot of the banks report on Friday, and then it looks like MS reports earnings before market open on January 19th. So with that being said, the banks are in a pretty strong uptrend. There's definitely been a lot of money flowing into them over like the past maybe 3 weeks or so. Generally, high inflation news helps bank stocks. With that being said, at this point, it's just like a potential longer term play for me. In the short term, I don't see any crazy opportunity to the upside or the downside, especially with earnings in a couple days.
Yeah, I don't really either, and we're kind of like right at the all-time highs right now. Well, actually, I don't. Hold on, let me go back to the Max Weekly chart just to be sure. Yeah, I think it actually is all-time highs. No, it's not. All-time highs are at around $110, but we're really close to all-time highs. We're at the highs of like the past, 20 years or so right now. So I would say, it's going to be pretty hard to move up right now, being so close to that. But if the banks start to run, I think the MS could obviously keep running and break these highs here, but definitely be careful with it. It could obviously double top.
Sounds good. Tom, I know this is kind of off topic, but I know we talked about a lot of stocks today. But how about this action with commodities? Like gold and silver over the past couple of days have been really running, and it's pretty rare to see this type of movement on such a slow moving asset.
Yeah, it really is. Like slash GC, which is gold futures, is starting to go on a pretty explosive uptrend. And we might come up and retest these levels like around like 1870 again, somewhere like right around there. But if we go look at GLD, we'll come up and test somewhere like right around 175. There was a pretty big resistance right there. I love the way GLD is breaking out, Mike, and on the daily chart, like it's starting to really break some of these awesome technicals too. Like there's this awesome trend line that typically whenever it's been bouncing off of this, it starts to move pretty good to the upside. So I'm going to really look for it to finally move up and break 175. And then hopefully we can start to retest this 180 resistance. It's been a long time since we have went back up to 180, and I think that would make for an amazing move.
Yeah, I do think gold and silver look pretty good right now. They've had a very rocky past couple of months and past couple of weeks, but they're kind of like some of these stocks like Tilray or Baba or Beyond, in the sense that they'll just do nothing for like months, and then it'll just be like that like 1 week or like that like one like 10-day trading period where they just go crazy. So it's like I'm definitely watching them, and the best part is that for us options traders, these options are cheap right now. Like these GLD options, the implied volatility is less than 15%, which is very low, but even on a relative basis, like this is like as low as it's been in a long time.
Yeah, it really is. It's awesome to see, and it's just been sitting around here forever, like with the price, as far as the price goes. And I just really hope we finally see a move up, especially with all these inflation numbers on the rise and everything. You would really think that gold and silver would start to move up, especially with the markets being so high. I would really think that as this transition starts to happen, people might start to hedge into these metals as well. And maybe we're starting to see that this week. We're starting to see these growth stocks explode. And honestly, it's kind of like gold following growth, which is weird.
Yeah, it is pretty weird. And I'm also curious, like, let's say, because like I know a lot of times, historically speaking, let's say someone wanted to hedge inflation or just like kind of diversify a little bit from like the markets. Sometimes people would buy gold or silver or just like something like that. But like I know, especially over like the past year or two, a lot of people have been jumping into Bitcoin instead, Bitcoin and other cryptos. So I'm curious, is like, with the fall we saw out of Bitcoin over the past, couple weeks or month or so, I'm curious, like, if that will have an effect in, if that'll cause like more people to flow into gold, or if that'll maybe have more, or maybe it'll have less people flow into gold. I don't know. I'm just very curious to see how this whole situation is going to play out.
Yeah, I would think probably it would cause a little bit of less people to flow into gold, and maybe more people would go into Bitcoin because Bitcoin looks like it's following growth too. And if we start to see Bitcoin pop back up, I mean, it'll be a pretty good hedge, kind of like gold would. So I think it would be pretty good personally. And honestly, like if you were looking to hedge it, I think getting a little bit of both would be the way to go. And, like a lot of these guys who are probably hedging their like, $20 million portfolios and stuff, they're probably like really, getting like a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin, a couple $1 million worth of gold. And, they're probably diversifying it quite a bit if we are being realistic.
True, true. Like I was leaning more towards people flowing more into gold because of the drop with Bitcoin. Because, like you said, like let's say someone has like a $20 million portfolio or like a $50 million portfolio. Bitcoin, while it has been awesome over the past couple of years, at the end of the day, this thing dropped from 68,000 down to 40,000 in like a couple weeks. And that's huge. Where on the other hand, gold kind of held its ground and it's like slightly uptrending. And I feel like people who are looking to hedge, they're actually looking for more stability rather than like a retail trader who's looking for like potential movement. So like obviously we won't know until like history plays out, but there's definitely a couple good ways to look at it.
Yeah, great point. That actually is a very good way to say it. I'd agree with that 100%. And yeah, I mean, if I was going to put a lot of money in personally, I would definitely be, more apt to get GLD as well. It definitely seems, or just gold in general, it seems a lot safer, like you said, and definitely a lot more stable. So yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. That's a really good point, actually. And, thanks for pointing that one out. That really helps. And to be honest, like, I'm holding some GLD calls and I'm going to be really, watching GLD for a while. And, I know everyone in here who's in stat modeling is probably in GLD too. Hopefully they are. GLD is one of my favorite positions in there.
There we go. Alrighty, so we have Bravo saying, hey guys, what do you think of SPY / DIA / IWM today? So looking at the SPY, it's definitely up, but it's not like moving like a ton, but it is having some pretty good movement. So I'll say that. It's looking good so far. Let me just check out the DIA really quickly. It's also moving similar to the SPY. Then the IWM, yeah, it's also, I mean, they're all moving basically the same this morning. What's kind of weird is, so IWM's like up 0.47%, SPY's up 0.47%, and the DIA are all up 0.47%, or right around there. So that's pretty interesting, but they're all doing basically the same today. With that being said, I think the biggest opportunity is not with these major indices. I feel like it would be smarter to flow into stocks where most of the money is flowing. We have Boeing running up in a huge way today. There's a lot of people jumping into this one. There's a lot of money flowing into it, and the price is rising a good amount. At the same time, earlier this morning, we saw a lot of people flowing into China stocks and even stocks like Palantir. So even though the market itself is doing good and it seems to be holding its ground very well, if you're looking for like a short-term play, I feel like trading the market is not the way to go, and you'd be better off picking like an individual stock.
Yeah, I think so too, especially if you're trying to like day trade options and stuff right now. I think that this will be the way to go for sure. And looking at Boeing, Mike, it's having an amazing breakout today. I know we talked about this one a little bit yesterday, but it's running up in a major way. It really broke that like 218 to 218.50 resistance here. And man, we broke up above $220. Like Boeing's looking pretty good again, Mike. And I'm really watching for him to come up and retest like 228 to 230 up here.
There we go. All right. And then Bravo said, and houses. I might be jumping into buying a house. New one too. There we go. Do you guys think houses are going lower or higher over the next 6 to 12 months? So historically speaking, housing does very, very well, and especially over the past year, it's been doing very, very well. One thing to keep in mind is that usually when rates rise, that's bad for the housing market. So with that being said, there's a lot of other factors that go into the price of housing besides interest rates. But I will say interest rates do play a pretty major role. So with that being said, we might see like a little dip if rates do rise a lot, which they are expected to rise over the next 6 to 12 months. So that definitely is a risk factor. But honestly, Bravo, like by buying a house, I think the pros outweigh the cons. Even if you are slightly overpaying, like there's a lot of tax benefits as well as generally speaking, just the price of housing does rise quite a bit. So even if rates do rise, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, like if you look at a price at like a housing prices chart, it generally goes like straight up. And I'm talking like even through 2008 and all that stuff. Of course, it took a little bit of a dip, but it came right back. And, we saw the housing market do pretty well over the past how much, like 20 years or so. Like it's pretty much, it's been very stable. So like Mike said, I think the pros outweigh the cons too. And, people sometimes look at it too, like they look at it too too closely, I should say. They get so caught up in, well, I'm paying like an extra 0.5% on my interest rate or this or that. And, in the end, like you might wait 5 years and then your house would be worth, maybe $25,000, $50,000 more by then, so sometimes you miss the boat.
True. All right, so before we continue, I just want to thank everyone for joining today. So thank you guys so much for joining. Welcome Mike, Hunter, George, Keisha, Vicky, Alex, Shelly, I'm Fierce, Matt, Kevin, W, Manny, Mason, Bravo, and Abel. So thank you guys so much for joining today. We appreciate all of you. We have Mike coming in with the next question saying, do you guys like VOO? So VOO. I do. It's basically the alternative to the SPY. There's pros and cons to it. So like, let's say you're looking to hold the S&P 500 for the long term. A lot of people instantly think, okay, buy and hold the SPY. But if you plan on holding it for the long term, you will want to go with VOO because it has a lower expense ratio and like you're gonna pay less fees, but it basically moves the same way. So anything long term with the S&P 500, you want the VOO, lower fees. However, if you're looking for like short-term movement or even like movement over a couple months, you'll want the SPY because the options chain is much, much more liquid, and then even the stock is extremely liquid. So just know short-term or anything medium-term SPY, long-term VOO, but besides that, they basically move the same.
Yeah, definitely. And Mike, I actually got that chart up here of the housing prices just so people can see if they are interested. You can see like going back to the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. The blue line is going to be the median home price. And you can see it's done pretty well. Obviously, like I said, it dipped down in 08, but recovered fairly fast. And then we can see where it is now. The yellow line is inflation adjusted. So you can see it's not as good whenever you factor in inflation, but still, though, the prices overall have done pretty good.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, either way, I mean, there's definitely a lot of pros to buying real estate. And that's, one of them is being normally it hedges inflation too. And even if you buy at a high price right now with rates so low and the rates do rise and it hurts the valuation, like you don't lose unless you sell. And at the end of the day, like if you find a house you really like it'll kind of be an investment. You'll get a lot of benefits to owning it as well. So great question, Bravo. And then Bravo also mentioned, how is Z doing? So I'm actually really glad he brought up Z. Tom, I was actually doing a lot of research on Z's flow over the past couple of weeks, and I saw some huge money flowing into Z. Let me try and pull up the exact expiration and strike price because I want to share it with everyone really quickly. All right, so the other day I saw a lot of money flowing into the Z 60 strike call options for January 20th of 2023. It looks like over the past, on Friday and then on Monday, someone bought, 16, looks like someone bought just under, let me just calculate this really quickly. It looks like someone bought over 3,000 contracts, and it looks like the average purchase price was around $1,150 each. So actually it's more than 3,000. It's like 3,200. So it looks like 3,200 times 1,150. Let me do this, times 1,150 each. It looks like someone's dumping around $3.68 million into this play. So I'll say it again. It's the 60 strike calls for January 20th of 2023. With that being said, they're basically at the money and they have a lot of time. Z's at a good level, and I'm pretty tempted to follow this one.
Yeah, and I will say Z recently bounced off of a huge support dating all the way back to like 2019. So that's kind of crazy that they bounced right there again. And yeah, I'm definitely going to eye it up too, Mike. It looks like they got some lower highs, or I should say some higher lows going on here, which is a pretty good sign. And honestly, I just can't wait for them to start to move back up above 60. I think once they finally break out of this little range that they've been in for the past few months, they might start to finally fill this gap and maybe retest $100 fairly soon.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, like, with everything being said, Z is at a good level, but let's not forget they did have that housing or house flipping disaster a couple of months ago, which definitely hurt their stock price. But then again, they're at $60 right now. A couple months ago, they were at $208. The housing market's still powering pretty strong, so it's like it's looking good, and I would expect Zillow to continue to do pretty well. And I feel like a lot of the bad news is already behind us. But then again, like if more bad news comes out, obviously that could hurt the price of the option. But at the same time, when you're seeing a whale throw over $3 million into at-the-money calls that expire in a year, it's like kind of hard not to follow them.
Yeah, and it's not my favorite play, I'll be honest, for like shares for the longer term, but I would definitely entertain getting a couple of those calls. I think that would be amazing for maybe the next few months.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, like, right now it's at 60. Like, let's say we saw a pop back up to like 90 or like something like that. Like, that would be like a pretty good percentage gain on the, because yeah, like that means if you bought the 60 strike calls for like, let's say 1100, that means your break even's only like $70, Tom. Like right around that. Like think about that. Right now the shares are at like 59. If you bought those calls, your break even is at 70. Like,
and that's if you hold it till expiration.
And exactly, Tom. That's if you hold it to expiration. So literally by making this trade, you're making a bet with someone saying at some point Zillow is going to be greater than $70 between now and January 20th of 2023. I feel like that's a pretty good setup. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the pricing is pretty good too. I mean, IV isn't the lowest in the world, but if it's good for someone else to drop over $3 million into it, like you would think the setup has to be decent.
Yeah, definitely. And, that's a lot of money going in there. So hopefully those whales are doing good, and we'll have to keep our eyes on that trade, Mike. I know we probably will. And hopefully, people really start to catch on to some of these whale trades because, man, like whenever you look into order flow and you start really understanding it, it can be a huge advantage. And I know like you really touched on this in your new options course, and it's a really good course, actually. Everybody should check that one out.
Yeah, I mean, order flow is huge, Tom. Like, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. Like, I know Hunter and I chat a decent amount. Like, you'll see, like, some whale drop, like, $900,000 into, like, call options. And then, like, the next day, the stock's up, like, 12%. It's like, well, that was kind of, quote-unquote, lucky. But either way, like, it's pretty crazy when you see some of the trades that these whales are taking. But at the same time, there's definitely a lot that goes into it because there can be spreads and closing
and a lot
positions.
Of them can still lose too.
Yeah, exactly. And then they lose too sometimes. Like, even though the whales trade with huge money, they definitely have their fair share of losses as well. And that's important to keep in mind. But, yeah. And then we have Abel saying AMD puts with a question mark. Let's take a look. AMD, I really like these chip stocks to the downside, but it's like every time, like they just, they don't go down without a fight. Like the problem is like, I've been playing like some SMH puts, and the problem I've had is like, all right, we'll see like 3 days worth of like really bad downwards movement, but then it's like the stock will rebound and just linger around for like a week, and then it'll just like fall slightly again like a couple days later, and it just like destroys the options premium. So it's like, I like the setup. I don't like the options pricing on it because the implied volatility is high, and then it's hard to bet against these chip stocks. Like I really like them to the downside, but it's just like every time I want to play them, they just like have this slow, choppy movement that just like destroys the options.
Yeah, exactly. And the one crazy thing is like AMD did pull back like 23% here on the pullback. Like they did have a pretty decent move to the downside. So maybe it's just people buying up the dip, kind of like with growth. People are starting to buy growth back up, and maybe unfortunately these chip stocks might be considered growth. Like I know AMD was considered growth a couple of years ago. I don't know if you'd consider it that now, but it's definitely a powerhouse, and it seems like it's going up with these growth stocks, which is a little unexpected in my book.
Yeah, it's weird. Definitely weird. And then we have Manny saying cat puts, CAT. Let's take a look. It's looking okay. It's definitely not a play for me.
Yeah, me either. I think they obviously dipped down yesterday, and on the daily chart, they don't look the best right now to the upside or the downside. But in my opinion, they have earnings coming up. They're going to pay out this dividend too. I don't see any puts being the opportunity right now with CAT. They've been doing pretty good, and they're a pretty decent value stock, and they should hold up decently for the longer term at least. And if we look at them on like a max daily, they've been actually recovering up quite a bit, and I would think that they might start to break out back to these highs.
True. All right. And then we have Matt saying, bought my house 4.5 years ago in, South Florida. And then currently 33% over what I paid. Always better to pay towards your own principal than your landlord's, for sure. So that's, I definitely agree with you there. And real estate's generally a pretty good investment, and there's definitely a lot of pros to it. You fight off inflation. You kind of build yourself a little nest egg, and then in a lot of places you get some tax benefits as well.
Yeah, it can be really good. I know the tax benefits are huge, and there's all types of stuff you can do with houses. Like even if you want to buy one, and like let's say for example you live somewhere else and you just want to buy one for equity or just to like rent out to people. Like obviously I know a lot of people like to do those types of strategies, and I have a friend who's actually like in the top 5% in my state for selling realty, and it's pretty crazy to see how many houses he sells. And he honestly talks to me quite a bit about investing in houses and kind of getting into all that, and it's definitely something I'm entertaining for the future.
There we go. Awesome stuff. So looking back to some of the movers so far today, Tom, it looks like the market's being, it's being interesting. We can say that. Like it's slowly moving higher, but then again, we're seeing some profit taking across a couple different stocks. Like DraftKings is now in the red. We had Peloton in the red. Looks like Disney's in the red. So we're definitely seeing, some of these stocks aren't holding up too well. Like even Beyond kind of fell over a little bit. BABA fell over. So yeah, it looks like we're definitely seeing some profit taking.
Yeah, that's not good to see at all. I hate to see this type of movement come in. I was really hoping to see like Beyond and a lot of these stocks like Peloton, like you mentioned, continue up this morning, but it's just a bad sign to see them starting to drop. My watch list, like you said, is getting worse and worse. I will say a couple that are still holding up well, like Lucid is holding up decent. BABA's holding up pretty well, but they all are just starting to pull back a little bit. It's just a little bit of an unfortunate thing to see, but I will say that inflation data this morning, it did come in like at the forecast, and it looks like the SPY is holding up better than a lot of these stocks are.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would let me actually check something really quickly on the SPY. Yeah, it looks like these bank stocks are kind of holding it up, and like even some of the larger companies like Tesla, Microsoft, Apple, and things like that. And what's interesting is like we're even seeing like Boeing and others just explode up too. Like we're seeing Boeing explode up, which is definitely helping the market. And then like you just had pulled up Tesla, like that's those stocks by themselves will definitely hold up the market.
Yeah, they really will actually. Those ones are pretty big. I didn't see that Tesla was in the green today, Mike. That's actually pretty surprising considering everything else I'm seeing pull back. But hey, it's awesome to see. I'm glad it's moving up. And to be honest, my Tesla was looking pretty good over the past couple of days, and I'm not sure it's going to continue up maybe tomorrow, but for the rest of today, like it's starting to break out pretty well.
Yeah, I will say I'm actually really surprised we didn't have more people talking about Tesla because it's not looking bad. But I guess what's kind of interesting is that Tesla being up 2.5% isn't a ton because we all know how Tesla is such a crazy mover, but the options are up a decent amount. Like some of these calls are up 70% today on the weekly chain, which is pretty good. I bet it's probably just because of the movement we saw over like the past couple of weeks. Like Tesla has literally been all over the place over literally like actually since October. Like it's been in this range between like 900 and like $1,200.
Yeah, it really has, especially like if you look at it on that daily, it's so stuck. I can't wait for it to finally break out. Like I know that 1200 is such a big resistance up there. Like I feel like once we finally break that, Mike, it might get the hype back. I know that Wall Street bets and stuff has been calming down a little bit lately, but who knows? It might get the hype back. And, talking about Wall Street bets and a lot of the hype, I wonder how good old AMC is doing today, Mike. And oh, it just looks like AMC is just sitting here right around $22, $23, not really doing anything the past week.
Interesting. Like I feel like we're this $20 support's gonna be pretty important. Like we're testing it again for, I guess you can say like the second time. I know we got really close to it a couple times over the past couple days, but like on a daily chart, it really looks like this is the second test of $20. The first test being around like December 14th or so. But if this doesn't hold, that's not going to be good, because if we also look on the daily chart and look back a little bit throughout history, Tom, we can see $20 was a huge resistance back in January of 2021.
Yeah, it really was. That was a huge level. That's the reason why I have such a big support level on the chart right there, actually. And yeah, and you can even see that whenever we broke through $20 at the upside, how explosive it got that last time. So yeah, it's definitely a huge level. And you're right. If we break below that, it's not going to be good. And the short sellers are going to be jumping up and down on that day. I can tell you that.
Yeah, true that. We have Vicky saying, hit the like, guys. So yeah, if you guys like the stream, it would mean so much to us if you can demolish that like button. It helps us out so much, and we greatly appreciate it. And then Vicky is also asking for some levels on Roblox. So Roblox has also been all over the place. Tom, what levels do you have for us?
Yeah, Roblox over the past couple days has been really bouncing off of this bottom support level, really close to 87.50. I would say definitely look at 87.50 as a bottom support on Roblox. It looks like it's even bouncing there today. So maybe it'll get another maybe end of or middle of the day move like to the upside here right before lunch. But either way, I'm really going to watch Roblox. I think it had some good movement this week. And if growth continues, I think Roblox has a real chance to go up. And looking at them on the daily, I really like them at these levels. Like they're beaten down quite a bit. And it kind of reminds me of like an Affirm or an Upstart with the way they drop.
And then what about for resistance? So I know you said 87.50 for support, but what about for resistance?
Yeah, for resistance, there's a pretty big level here right at 90. And then, right after 90, it looks like 92. So those are going to be the two levels I'm looking at today, intraday. $90 is the first obvious one, though.
Sounds good. And it's also like a psychological level, too, So that can be big in that sense. But besides that, I'm just trying to see if there's like any other major movers that we may have missed. It looks like we covered most of them. I just want to check a couple of my watch lists really quickly. I feel like we covered most of the movers, Tom. Is there anything I missed?
Nothing too much. Most of the stocks moving today are pretty much like what you mentioned. The big tech are moving, like Nvidia, AMD. These stocks are really starting to explode, unfortunately. And, we're seeing Lucid starting to do very well today again, which I think is awesome. Lucid's been on a pretty good uptrend lately, so that's been great to see. And then we even have XPEV, Xpeng, which is, in that Chinese market doing well, which is pretty good to see as well. I know that NIO was also up. I don't know if we mentioned NIO or not, but they're also in the green, up 3.25%. And they're up 3%, and they're not even close to that high of day, actually.
True. Yeah, it's also a mover. When that gets momentum, it's definitely one to watch for. But with that being said, we basically covered everything. The market's going crazy. Like, Tom, do you have any last-minute things, like any last-minute potential setups, any last-minute thoughts on the market or anything?
Yeah, as far as thoughts on the market, I really am trying to digest this inflation news today, Mike. Like, we're looking at the SPY, and we're looking at all this inflation data coming out. I know that the inflation data today came out as expected, like right around 7%. But in the end, like, I wasn't expecting the market to explode up like this from that data. Like I thought with it coming in as expected, like obviously It might make the market go up a little bit, but I wasn't expecting to see all these tech stocks start shooting up, especially with all the talks of like rates going up and everything like that. I know Powell kind of made the markets rise a little bit yesterday, but in the middle of the day, I just don't know what to think about this inflation data, Mike. It's really a hard subject to digest right now. And, like I would think that 7% is pretty high, but I guess since it came in as expected, it's, the market's going up, and it's always a touchy subject to talk about.
You know it. Well, thank you guys so much for joining today. We really appreciate all of you, and we hope you have an amazing rest of your day.